Some rivalries are born because of competition, but very few, are born because of wounds that never heal. The Ashes, a name that still burns in time, a story of pride, pain, and redemption. It was not created in joy, it was born from humiliation. Let's go back to the summer of 1882. Cricket was a game of the rich and elite, players in white cloths, people clapping softly, polite smiles all around. England ruled the cricket world back then and also the real world. Australia was still a British colony. To England, they were like a younger cousin, talented but emotional and not yet equal. But that summer, everything changed. One match, one act, one man. And the story of cricket changed forever. It was August 29, 1882, the Oval, London. A one-off test match between England and Australia. Nobody in that crowd of 10,000 people knew that they were watching the birth of cricket's greatest rivalry. Australia had already beaten England once at home, but they came to England with quite confidence. But English weather had its own plans. The air was heavy, the pitch was green, soft and dangerous, perfect for bowlers. And on paper, England were much stronger than Australia. Every Australian batter's average that season was lower than his English rival. Their bowlers were said to be less skilled, less scary. England looked relaxed, proud, even overconfident. For their crowd, victory was certain, and for English newspaper, defeat was impossible. Well, the game started, and when Australia batted first, it looked like the experts were right. Ted Peat and Dick Barlow bowled beautifully, swinging and seaming the ball. Australians were bowled out for only 63 runs. Only 3 players even managed to reach double figures. The crowd laughed and cheered. Some people even started leaving the ground early, showed that England would win easily. But cricket is a funny game. It never follows logic. It can turn in just one moment, and that day, it turned because of one man, Fred Spofforth. They called him the Demon. He was tall, thin, with fierce eyes and a serious face. He did not bowl just for fun or fame. He bowled for pride, for Australia's name and respect. When England came to bat, Spofforth was like fire. He ran in hard, the ball moved fast and dangerously, and England's batter, who were calm before, suddenly looked unsure. Spofforth bowled with so much fire, he took 7 wickets for just 46 runs, and England were all out for 101. Australia were back in the game. The crowd went quiet, because England's lead was only 38 runs. It was small, but still sufficient, and match was open again. Australia started their second innings with hope. The openers did well. They have added 66 runs. Hugh Messi played bravely, scoring a fighting 55, and Australia's spirit were rising. But then came the moment that changed the match. Young Sammy Jones was batting carefully. After one delivery, he stepped out of the crease to pat the pitch with his bat, something very common in those days. England's great hero W.G. Grace saw a chance. He picked up the ball and quickly took off the bails, appealing for a run out. Jones was out of his crease but not trying to run. Still, the umpire gave him out. Crowd cheered, but the Australians were stunned. They felt Grace had broken the gentleman spirit of the game. And especially that man, Fred Spofforth, was furious. He rushed back to the dressing room, his face red with anger, and shouted at his captain. That was disgraceful. That man has no honor, but this will cost them the game. Spofforth was boiling inside. For him, it was not just a run out, it was an insult. And he was going to answer it. Not with words, but with the ball. Australia's innings ended soon at 122. They had set England a small target, only 85 runs to win. The English players were smiling again, the crowd relaxed, victory seemed certain. But inside the Australian camp, Spofforth stood up and said to the team, "Boys, this can still be done." His eyes were burning with belief. England started their chase with confidence. They reached 51 for 2. The great W.G. Grace was still there on 32 not out. Crowd was singing and laughing. They thought the game was as good as over. But Spofforth was not done yet. He came charging in and bowled Grace out. That one wicket changed everything. England's calm faces turned pale, and Spofforth smelled fear. He bowled faster, fiercer, with pure emotion. The ball cut, seamed and rose sharply. Wickets started falling one after another. From 51 for 2, England fell to 75 for 8, and Spofforth had taken 7 of the first 8 wickets. Now, crowd was absolutely silent. You could almost hear hearts beating. England needed just 10 more runs and 2 wickets left. Everyone at the Oval was holding their breath. Then Harry Boyle came to bowl from the other end. He ran in and delivered a straight run. The ball hit the stumps, clean bowled. England were all out for 77 and Australia had won by 7 runs. It was a victory that shocked the world. England, the rulers of cricket, had been beaten on their own ground by their colony. It was more than a sporting loss. It hurt their pride. The newspapers were speechless. The empire had fallen, at least on the cricket field. The next morning, a newspaper called the Sporting Times published a funny note, or what they thought was funny. It said, "In affectionate remembrance of English cricket, which died at the Oval on 29 August 1882, The body will be cremated and the ashes taken to Australia. Those few words created history. That joke gave birth to the name that would live forever, the Ashes. Few months later, England captain Ivo Blythe took his team to Australia. He said he was going to bring back the Ashes. The phrase had now spread everywhere, in newspapers, in songs, in pubs. It became a mission of pride. During that tour, something special happened. At Rupersford Estate, near Melbourne, on Christmas Eve, a group of women, led by Lady Clark, presented Blythe with a small terracotta urn. Inside it was a burnt piece of cricket bale. It was a friendly joke, but it carried deep meaning. It symbolized the ashes of English cricket. At the same state, Blythe met Florence Morphy, a woman whose charm touched his heart. They fell in love with and later got married. The urn became their personal treasure, a reminder of love, rivalry, and honor. Years later, after Blythe's death, Florence gave the urn to the Marylebone Cricket Club, MCC. And today, that tiny urn, small, fragile, and brown, sits at Lord's in London, protected behind glass like a sacred relic. It holds not dust but the soul of cricket. From that one match, from humiliation and pride, rose cricket's greatest rivalry. Since that day, the Ashes has been more than a game. It's a fight played with bat and ball, but driven by heart and history. And every generation has added its own fire. Be it Don Bradman in the 1930s, a man who turned batting into art. Then came the Bodyline series of 1932 when England's bowler attacked the body, not the stumps, to stop Bradman. It was fierce, even cruel, but unforgettable. Post-war came a new era. Dennis Lillee and Jeff Thompson in the 1970s bowling fast and furious. England found their fighter too, Ian Botham, wild, fearless, full of passion. Their matches were not games, they were dramas. And then came Headingley 1981. England were 500 to 1 odds. Botham performed a miracle, turning defeat into victory, and it became the heartbeat of English cricket. And who can forget the 2005 Ashes? Two teams equally brave, and Flintoff on his knees shaking hands with Beatley after one of the greatest batter ever would be an image. No hate, just respect, born from fire. Years passed, but the flame never went out. Be it Steve Smith's focus, Ben Stokes' miracle at Headingley, or Pat Cummins' calm leadership, every generation added new magic. The Ashes does not need money or glamour, it lives in small moments. The silence after a wicket, the smirk after a boundary, roar of the crowd when history repeats itself. That tiny urn, no bigger than a coffee mug, carries more emotion than any golden trophy. It reminds us that pride can rise from defeat and legends can rise from ashes. The Ashes is not just about England or Australia, it is about the spirit of cricket itself. The passion never dies. What began as a day of humiliation in 1882 became a story of immortality. A rivalry older than most nations actually, a flame that never fades. Because the Ashes is not just a contest, it is cricket's soul burning forever.